Deep in the forests of South America, a small animal is about to embark on an extraordinary journey. The strawberry poison dart tree frog is less than 5 centimeters long. Yet with her tadpole fixed firmly on her back, she is crawling up a 30-meter-high tree in search of a forest plant lodged high in the canopy. Bromeliads contain small reservoirs of water. Here, the developing tadpoles will be safe from the predators that roam the jungle floor. The frog may deposit up to 6 tadpoles in different bromeliad ponds. Then, every few days, she will repeat this mammoth climb to lay unfertilized eggs in each pond. There'll be food for the tadpoles as they mature into frogs. Ensuring the survival of the next generation is never easy. Or certain. Reproduction is fundamental for every form of animal life. Without it, their species won't survive. But the natural world can be a difficult and hostile place, especially where vulnerable young are concerned. Disease, predators, and hostile environments are just a few of the hazards facing animal parents and their offspring. The most astonishing stories of animal evolution revolve around overcoming this supreme challenge. For most species, the task of creating the next generation begins with finding a suitable mate. For those who live a solitary life in the vast, featureless ocean, this could be far from easy. Humpback whales live much of their adult life alone, migrating through thousands of miles of ocean each year, and they rarely come across each other by accident. They navigate through the dark waters using a sophisticated form of echolocation. Sound waves help the whales create a kind of mental map, but that's not all they do. When it's time to mate, the males send out a different call. This time, it's a message. The sound can travel many miles through the water. This male's song can be half an hour long, and he repeats it as he travels. With luck, there'll be a female somewhere within range. If there is, she'll register the call and head through the ocean towards the song and the male. Once they have mated, the male will stay with the female until the calf is born. The job of rearing the calf will take almost a year. This task will fall to the mother. Before long, the male will be heading back into the ocean's inky depths. While the whales seek out mates in the world's oceans, in the skies above, the wandering albatross faces much the same sort of problem. They're among the world's most widely traveled birds. They fly many thousands of miles each year. For months on end, their feet don't touch the ground. But once in a while, the albatrosses make an exception. They gather on small sub-Antarctic islands. There, they enact an extraordinary ritual. These animals are courting. They're very fussy. Perhaps that's because they're one of the very few animals that mates for life, which in their case can be as long as 80 years. It may take 3 or 4 years of elegant and elaborate displays and dances before a couple will commit. Then, they'll produce a single chick every 2 years. Finding a mate can certainly be quite a challenge. It wouldn't be surprising if some animals adopted a more radical solution. And one of them has. These are whiptail lizards, and every single one of them is female. Here, males don't exist. The whiptails don't need them. They've opted for cloning. Each year, an adult female produces her eggs. Each will be female, a replica of herself. Her daughter, in turn, will pass on the same genetic code to her daughters, and so it continues down the generations. Sex, as such, has become obsolete, but the females still need to be sexually stimulated in order to produce the egg. So the females take on the task for each other. It seems to do the trick, and the eggs are laid. Whiptails appear to be perfectly adapted to their environment. For now, they thrive in a habitat and climate unchanged for centuries. But what if things go wrong? Fluctuations in climate and environment are inevitable over time. If all the lizards are identical, none will be equipped to cope with those changes if, or more likely, when it happens, they could be wiped out almost overnight. So far, the whiptails have got away with it. A world away. Among the lush green vegetation of Europe, farmers and gardeners struggle with a perennial pest. Summer after summer, aphids, commonly called greenfly, overrun plants and crops. They seem to multiply by the hour. In fact, that's exactly what they do, for aphids, like the whiptails, clone. For the first part of the summer season, a virgin female aphid will produce as many as 100 small replicas of herself each day, and her daughters will go on to do the same. They're reproducing at top speed, just when the food supply is there to be taken advantage of. But will they, like the whiptails, be risking extinction? Far from it. Late in the season, the female aphids change tack and begin to produce orange offspring. And some of these are male, unrecognizable to us as greenfly. In the autumn, they mate with an unrelated female, and their offspring, this time a genetic mixture, will become the foundation members of next season's aphid community. So, the aphids manage to have the best of both worlds. It accounts for their extraordinary success and the gardener's frustration. Most animals, however, limit themselves to one reproductive method. Most commonly, that's sexual. It ensures a new generation with a wide variety of genes. With more diversity, there's a chance that there'll be some individuals able to take advantage of change. But diversity means competition, and there are few contests as serious as the mating game. In the hills of the Sierra Nevada, male bighorn sheep compete for herds of females, and there's only one winner. Competing males charge each other like medieval jousters and meet head-on at speeds of up to 100 kilometers an hour. Their skulls collide with an estimated force of more than 1,000 kilos. It seems a miracle that even their thick and bony skulls can survive this. Yet the contest goes on and on and on for many hours. They're not alone. All over the animal kingdom, males in competition for females are fighting it out. But for naked, heavyweight aggression, it's hard to beat the Californian bull-elephant seal. In their fights for supremacy, bulk is the only weapon. Males simply eat themselves to victory. They spend most of their lives building themselves up to as much as 3 tons of menacing blubber. Victory may be sweet, but the price is a constant stream of challenges and an unending succession of fights. There's no doubting that size and strength count, but it's not always the biggest male that wins in the end. In Lake Tanganyika, mature male cichlids dwarf the females and the younger males. They're powerful enough to lift and carry abandoned shells in their jaws. The male piles the shells up into a nursery, each shell providing a convenient sheltered spot for the small females to lay their eggs. The male then fertilizes the eggs and mounts a vigilant guard. Challenging males are easily repulsed. Even when the smaller males join forces, they can't dislodge a large and successful male. But some smaller cichlid males have developed an alternative approach. They impersonate a female, changing their coloration and behavior to suit. Deceived, the dominant male allows the interloper in. Then, the disguised male seeks out any unfertilized eggs and fertilizes them himself, right under the nose of the dominant male. The cichlid males are not alone in employing underhanded means to passing on their genes. In this group of side-blotched lizards, there are 3 different sorts of males, with 3 very different attitudes towards breeding. 2 of them are identifiable by the color of their throats. Constant males have blue throats. A blue-throated lizard remains faithful to one female. Orange-throated males have a different agenda. They try to mate with as many females as possible. They're aggressive and challenge blue-throated males for access to their mates. But while they're fighting it out, a third type of male with a yellow throat sometimes appears. This male is in disguise, because yellow necks are a female characteristic. Both the blue and orange neck males ignore him as they struggle on. Meanwhile, he mates with the unguarded female. And then disappears. The male urge to mate is so strong that it dominates even where it's not, strictly speaking, necessary. In the Pacific Ocean, Portuguese man-of-war jellyfish play host to an unusual creature, the blue ocean slug. It's unusual because it's one of the rare creatures that has both female and male sex organs. It's a hermaphrodite. Each slug produces eggs, which it can fertilize itself, but it also seeks out other sea slugs and tries to fertilize their eggs. It develops into quite a battle. The urge to defeat the other male's sexual chances is so great that the sea slugs cannibalize each other's male genitalia. It's the ultimate in sexual warfare. It may sometimes seem that it's the male sexual urge that drives reproduction, but they're not always in control. In the bird world, it's usually the females who choose, and their standards are high. Female-ruled terns are wooed with offerings of fish, but not any old fish will do. A small catch will be resolutely ignored. A large fish is better, but this one is too big to swallow comfortably, so is also rejected. A regular supply of suitable food wins the female's favor. It seems rational. The female is choosing the most competent food provider to support her during breeding. But sometimes the logic seems less obvious. Female bowerbirds are not brightly colored themselves, but they do like a showily decorated nest. They particularly favor the color blue. The male is required to come up with suitable offerings before being allowed to mate. Some female birds demand extraordinary displays of talents from their suitors. This Australian lyrebird would win any talent contest. He imitates at least 20 different species of local forest birds. The kookaburra, for instance. His impersonation is so good he even gets a reply. And it doesn't stop there. The lyrebird can imitate just about anything. It's clear that they've been camera-toting tourists around. And car alarms. Even forestry workers. He's entitled to take a bow. Male Ragiana birds of paradise don't have to do anything as clever as that. But they are required to have perfect plumage, which may take years to grow, and needs constant care and attention. These mating auditions may seem a touch bizarre, but they all, in their different ways, demonstrate genetic strength. Whether it's fishing, singing, or, in the case of these long-tail mannequins, marathon dancing, the winners will be the strongest, healthiest, and most competent, with DNA to match. And that's what the females are looking for. As with humans, when it comes to being a desirable mate, physical attributes can count for a lot. Among blue-footed boobies, it's the feet that do it. The bluer, the better. These should pass the test, and they do. Color can sometimes tell another story. It can be a message of life or death. The courtship dance of the sage grouse features a display of skin pouches on the chest. Normal grouse display a greenish-yellow color. But a red pouch means something very different. Grouse are prone to a particular strain of tuberculosis, and when a bird is infected, the skin pouches become red and scarred. Grouse with red skin pouches are rejected as mates, while healthy grouse, who may well have immunity, pass on their genes to the next generation. But red isn't always a warning sign. Among uakari monkeys deep in the Amazon forests, it means exactly the opposite. A uakari's red face is considered very attractive. The uakaris are plagued with malaria, spread by the millions of local mosquitoes. The disease affects these primates in much the same way that it affects humans, but with an added side effect. Those who are infected become pale. Females will only accept the advances of those whose faces are distinctly ruddy. In doing so, they're boosting their offspring's chances of inheriting resistance to malaria. While infected monkeys are denied the chance to breed. As finding a mate can be such an uncertain and time-consuming operation, it would seem logical for animals to avoid doing it more than once. By and large, though, monogamy is rare. Though, not everywhere. In the forests of India, gibbons are the masters of the treetops. "70 meters above the ground, the gibbons swing effortlessly through the upper branches. When they slow down, the thoughts of the gibbons turn to courting. And they do it by singing to each other on an almost operatic scale. During courtship, a wooing pair creates a signature duet, a complex arrangement of calls and sounds specific to themselves. These duets are so elaborate that the pair never seems to finish developing them. And they never seem to get around to finding a new partner either. Perhaps the thought of starting again is just too daunting. Only 3% of mammals mate for life. But in the bird world, monogamy seems to be the lifestyle of choice. 90% of birds choose a lifelong partner. However, even here, monogamy isn't always guaranteed. The pied flycatcher is a familiar sight in British woods. He and his partner are settling into a nesting box. And before long, the female begins laying her eggs. At this point, the male disappears, leaving the female to incubate the eggs on her own. He, meanwhile, is courting another female. Soon, she too is installed in a nesting box with her clutch of eggs. Now the male returns to the first nest and sets about helping provide food for the newly hatched chicks. Back at the second nest, things are not going so well. This female, now deserted, is forced to raise her chicks alone. Keeping the fledglings warm and finding them enough food is a nearly impossible task. This family's prospects don't look good. Soon, the chicks in the second nest begin to perish. Meanwhile, family number 1 is thriving. 5 strong chicks are ready to emerge into the world. This nest has been a big success. And miraculously, in nest number 2, there are 2 survivors. The male's strategy has given him a reproductive bonus, 2 more chicks than if he'd been loyal to his first partner. Elsewhere, female birds are turning the tables on males, inclined to leave them holding the chicks. A male penduline tit builds an impressive nest lined with thistledown. He's eager to get an early start to the breeding season. The female accepts his courtship and moves into the nest. She starts to lay eggs, but in secret, hiding the eggs in the fluffy nest lining. The male is reluctant to go in search of another female until he knows that the eggs have been laid, so he waits. And is still around when the female suddenly leaves the nest, abandoning her now visible clutch of eggs. The male has no choice but to incubate and rear the chicks himself. For birds, the act of mating is usually speedy and uncomplicated. For other animals, the mechanics of sex can present a whole new series of challenges. And the problems tend to increase with size. Elephants are the largest land mammals. Astonishingly and uniquely, bull elephants never stop growing. So, an older adult male is truly enormous, and so is his penis. It's also extremely mobile, which helps to make up for his bulky, inflexible body. Even so, mating is a tricky business. The male elephant can weigh 4 tons more than the female, and has to take care not to crush her. Male elephants have an evolutionary peculiarity. They're the only land animal whose testicles are lodged inside rather than outside the body. It's something they have in common with an even bigger mammal. Male southern right whales also have internal testes, and theirs are the world's largest. They can weigh as much as a ton. The whales have similar logistical problems to their heavyweight land cousins when it comes to mating. This female is surrounded by ardent males. She's evasive, as she's not yet ready to mate, although the males clearly are. The whale's penis protrudes from a slit on his underside. It's 12 feet long and highly mobile. The males barge and jostle. Then, when the female is ready, she dives and mating begins. Each male's sperm flushes out that of the previous mating. So the trick is not to be the first, but to be last. Defeating the efforts of other males is a popular theme. This male damselfly is scooping out all sperm from previous males before inserting his own. Male sparrows can't do that. Instead, they peck at the female's genitals until she squeezes out her previous suitor's sperm. Finally, he mates, and just has to hope that he's the last. But there is one animal who has found a way to remove this uncertainty. This female Australian swallowtail butterfly is exuding a scent, signaling that she is ready to mate. It doesn't take long for a male to respond. Their mating can be a lengthy affair, sometimes taking up to 18 hours. But here, it's not just sperm that is being transferred to the female. The male is also secreting a substance that will plug the female's genitals, making her inaccessible to other suitors. Amid this plethora of challenges, accomplishing a successful mating can be considered an achievement in itself. But of course, reproduction doesn't end there. If offspring are produced, they must be cared for and protected. For birds, the first priority is to safeguard their eggs. To them, they're prized offspring. To other animals, they're a desirable snack. The eggs themselves are minor miracles. A microscopic egg cell is planted on a globule of yolk. Waiting for it in the egg duct are stored sperm, one of which fertilizes the egg as it passes. After several hours, it reaches the lime-producing section of the duct. Over 24 hours, the hard shell is built up. Finally, a pigment gland squirts out spots of color, and an avocet produces her egg. From now on, the egg relies on the parent's care, and none will go to greater lengths to secure their egg's safety than the great dusky swift. On the border of Brazil and Argentina lies one of the world's most spectacular waterfalls, Iguazu, or Great Water. Every minute, more than 240,000 gallons of water thunder over the falls. But eagle-eyed visitors will see something even more astonishing. At certain times of the year, small birds can be seen apparently flying straight into the rushing wall of water. They're dusky swifts, and in fact, they're not flying to their deaths. Somehow, they pass right through. On small, awkward ledges behind the falls, the birds lay their eggs. Here, they'll be quite safe. No other animal has worked out how to get through without being crushed or drowned. Not all birds are so adept in the air. Puffins are dangerously slow. They're much more at home in the water. Yet they must come ashore to lay their eggs and somehow defend them from predatory gulls. So the puffins have developed a useful talent, digging. They tunnel out a series of burrows, too small for the gulls, but just right for themselves and their eggs. Puffins aren't the only birds who've turned to excavation. In Indonesia, malios hide their eggs in the sand. But it isn't random digging. For them, precision is everything. The sand is baked by the sun. If the eggs are too near the surface, they'll cook. Too deep, and they'll be too cold. But if the malios get it right, the sand will not only conceal their eggs, but incubate them too. If there's no safe place for your eggs, the only option is to create one yourself. The foam nesting frog secretes a liquid which she then whips up into a froth. Into this, she lays her eggs. The foam hardens, forming a protective shell until the tadpoles are ready to emerge. Sometimes it's more a case of making sure the eggs stay put. This cat shark lays her eggs 1,000 feet deep in the ocean, where there are few predators. But she doesn't want them to float up into more perilous waters. So the female cat shark ties them down. When the egg sacs emerge, they have sticky tendrils, which allow the fish to anchor them on stems of vegetation. Quite a task if you don't have limbs. For the next 10 months, the embryos develop safely in their sacs, away from danger. They emerge as small, uncoordinated infants. But in the comparatively safe environment of the deep, they at least have a fighting chance of survival. Laying your eggs where others don't go is always a good bet. Most animals retreat when they sense a forest fire, but the fire beetle heads straight towards it. Ignoring the smoldering heat, it lays its eggs in the smoking detritus of the fire, where they'll have the place to themselves. For the fire beetle, parental duty is done. But for some frogs, vigilance lasts a little longer. This one has noticed that his brood of tadpoles are in trouble. They're marooned in a pond that's rapidly drying up. So he does a little digging. And just in time, saves the day. For mammals, the process of caring for the young may be much, much longer. And the sacrifice often falls on only one parent, the mother. In the far north of the Arctic, polar bear cubs are born in winter dens under the snow. While the worst of the freezing weather rages outside, a cub will spend 4 months cocooned with its mother, drinking her milk. Polar bear's milk is more like cream, packed with nutrients and much needed fat. It's everything the cub needs to grow. During this time, the mother eats nothing. Each week, the cub will gain 1 kilogram, while the mother will lose 3. By the time spring comes, the mother is close to starvation. But even then, her task is not over. She must stay close to the den for several more weeks, while the cubs acquire some basic skills. Only then can she take them onto the sea ice and begin to hunt for food. It will take as long as 2 years before the cubs have learned enough to survive on their own. Like many of life's tasks, the burdens of parenthood are easier to bear when shared, and some animals have embraced the idea wholeheartedly. Meerkats live together in groups, up to 30 of them sharing each desert burrow. The young are never short of playmates. Meerkats divide the parenting tasks. Together they forage for their food and protect the young from predators. There's always a band of babysitters on hand and someone to keep a watchful eye. Many of the apes also live in groups and share some responsibility for the young. But the real bond among the great apes is between individual parents and their offspring. At the beginning of their lives, the young rely upon their mothers for milk, warmth, and bodily contact. As they grow, It's their mothers who teach them the skills they need to survive. From her also, they receive love and affection. Starved of emotional support, young apes, like humans, fail to thrive. Mountain gorilla mothers in Central Africa give their infants continuous love and care. This mother will suckle her infant at least once an hour for the first 5 months of its life. The male role is less intimate, but just as important. The silverback dominant male protects all his young from danger. In spite of his size and strength, he's gentle with the young gorillas and takes his turn at playing with them. Like the other great apes, chimpanzees display real affection for their offspring and go to great lengths to ensure their well-being. Often their relationships will last for a lifetime. Well beyond maturity, they seek each other out for friendship and company. This close and long-lasting family bond is essential to the development process of young chimpanzees. Unlike most other animals, ape behavior is not purely instinctual. Many life skills are learned. And this is how they learn, with the young chimps sitting at their parents' knee. They may not get it right straight away, but it's only a matter of time. Young orangutans don't grow up with a social system as complex as that of chimpanzees. They're usually solitary for much of their adult lives, but they have much to learn before then. The forest is full of challenges. Orangutan mothers keep their young with them longer than any other mammal in the world. They may not be weaned until they're 7 years old. Young males will stay with their mother well into their teens, and females even longer. From her, they learn how to nurture young of their own. In the rich and complex world of animals, procreation is both wonderful and varied. There are a million ways to do it, and all have some special quality evolved over many thousands of years. It may be complicated, demanding, and even dangerous. Yet it's something that all must undertake if they are to pass on the torch of life to the next generation. Will take almost a year. This task will fall to the mother. Before long, the male will be heading back into the ocean's inky depths. While the whales seek out mates in the world's oceans, in the skies above, the wandering albatross faces much the same sort of problem. They're among the world's most widely travelled birds. They fly many thousands of miles each year. For months on end, their feet don't touch the ground. But once in a while, the albatrosses make an exception. They gather on small sub-Antarctic islands. There, they enact an extraordinary ritual. These animals are courting. They're very fussy. Disease, predators and hostile environments are just a few of the hazards facing animal parents and their offspring. The most astonishing stories of animal evolution revolve around overcoming this supreme challenge. For most species, the task of creating the next generation begins with finding a suitable mate. For those who live a solitary life in the vast, featureless ocean, this could be far from easy. Humpback whales live much of their adult life alone, migrating through thousands of miles of ocean each year, and they rarely come across each other by accident. They navigate through the dark waters using a sophisticated form of echolocation. Sound waves help the whales create a kind of mental map. But that's not all they do. The frog may deposit up to 6 tadpoles in different bromeliad ponds. Then, every few days, she will repeat this mammoth climb to lay unfertilized eggs in each pond. There'll be food for the tadpoles as they mature into frogs. Ensuring the survival of the next generation is never easy. Or certain. Reproduction is fundamental for every form of animal life. Without it, their species won't survive. But the natural world can be a difficult and hostile place, especially where vulnerable young are concerned. Deep in the forests of South America, a small animal is about to embark on an extraordinary journey. The strawberry poison dart tree frog is less than 5 centimeters long. Yet with her tadpole fixed firmly on her back, she is crawling up a 30-meter-high tree in search of a forest plant lodged high in the canopy. Bromeliads contain small reservoirs of water. Here, the developing tadpoles will be safe from the predators that roam the jungle. When it's time to mate, the males send out a different call. This time, it's a message. The sound can travel many miles through the water. This male's song can be half an hour long, and he repeats it as he travels. With luck, there'll be a female somewhere within range. If there is, she'll register the call and head through the ocean towards the song and the male. Once they have mated, the male will stay with the female until the calf is born. The job of rearing the calf